You got two? You say yeah?
Yeah,
So really, this,
we don't have to open it up to the floor.
no, we don't, okay.
No, the budget.
Right? I mean, what's your thoughts?
We're talking about budget.
We can listen.
I will tell them.
I'm ready. Oh, there's Jason. Hello.
Speed.
That's all right, we understand. I'll let him see.
For the shop to come.
Sorry. We want to welcome everyone out to the meeting of the Morgan County Council for October the 19th, 2022. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which Troy Sprinkle is going to lead us, and then Sheriff Myers will lead us in prayer. If you'll stand, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this time of fellowship and this time of understanding and doing the work of the county. We ask that you be with us and be with the rest of the taxpayers, the workers of the county and their families. We ask that in this time of harvest that you be with the farmers, keep them safe, as they put food on our table for each and every American and throughout the world. We ask that you be with the first responders and all those workers throughout the county. Prepare for this winter season, that you keep your hand protection on them as they safe season. We thank you for your blessings every day. We fall short, but we ask that you be with us and guide us and keep us in your name.
Amen. I think everyone's gotten a copy of the minutes from August 22nd, 23rd, 29th, and the August 23rd Commissioners Joint Council and Commissioners Meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review those? Any questions or comments, changes? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve those minutes presented.
Melissa Green will move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Sprinkle, second.
Thank you, Troy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, any opposed or abstentions? Meeting minutes pass 7-0. Thank you. Well, happily, we have no additional appropriations this month, so we can move right out of additional appropriations to transfers. And I think, Jeannie, you're first up from the Health Department.
Good evening.
Hello.
We are just here to ask to transfer $3,000 from a salary line item to gasoline. Our gasoline line item has been hit pretty hard this year, so we think this will get us through the remainder of the year.
Okay. So a request for $3,000 from preparedness coordinator to gas. Any questions on that?
Vicki Kivett makes a motion that we approve the transfer of $3,000 from preparedness coordinator into the gasoline fund.
We have a motion.
Callable second.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Local Roads and Street Fund. Is there someone here presenting on that this evening? Well, we'll wait a little bit. We'll come back to that and see if someone shows up to present on that. So Moving on to your second part of the agenda, we have the public hearing on preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement to pay the cost of purchasing said real estate and construction and equipping a new justice center. I think Josh is going to come up first. Okay.
Do what? Were you getting ready to say something? No, I was just.
Do we need to recess and come
Oh,
in?
momentarily, we don't need to yet.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here before you tonight. Tonight is a continuation of the processes we've already been started on. We have our representation here through TAF. We have Zach Klutz, as well as from Baker Tilly, we have Jason Simler. They're going to walk you through this process tonight and through the resolution that we're introducing tonight, as well as the first public hearing. Afterwards, if there's questions, either they or myself or one of the commissioners can help you with those. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Zach up here to talk to you guys.
Great. Should I recess now? Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, council.
Good
Good
evening.
to see everyone again. This is kind of step 2 in the process for the Justice Center, phase 2 of the financing. And tonight is our very initial step of the second round of financing. And it'll seem very familiar to what we did last time. The reason it's going to seem familiar is we have to conduct public hearings before we can adopt your resolution to make a preliminary determination to enter into the debt financing agreement. And the reason we do that is the lease agreement will be supported by property tax, which requires the 2 public hearings. I'll get into that lease agreement in just a minute. But we have published notice of the hearing. It was published on October 5th, at least 10 days prior to tonight's date. The first public hearing will be this evening, and the second public hearing will be on October 25th. This process is step 1. Relates to making a preliminary determination to enter into the financing agreements and incur debt. You may have noticed I said enter into the lease agreement. This structure will be structured different than the structure we did earlier this year for the GO bonds. This will be what we call lease financing, lease rental bonds. And the issuer of the bonds will technically be the Morgan County, Indiana Building Corporation. They will be the issuer of the bonds. The county will be the lessee and will lease the Justice Center from the Building Corporation for the term of the lease, which I believe is going to be 20 years. And then that building will revert back to the county at the expiration of the lease. This structure is used throughout the state of Indiana all the time when there's building financing and building financings of this magnitude. This allows the county to proceed with the project without debt limit and capacity limitations. And so we have formed the building corp. We have directors appointed. We have meetings scheduled once this process is ready, and we will proceed with that process. And so a lot of this will seem familiar, except that a lot of times you'll hear me referring to a lease instead of bonds. The bonds are going to be issued by the building corp, and your debt service will be through a lease payment. Those lease payments will be supported by or be provided by property taxes. I'm going to turn it over to Baker Tilly to talk about the numbers and the financial terms of the debt and the lease and the bonds. After he's kind of presented, we can do one of 2 things. We could come up and answer any questions specific to us that you may have, or we could open the public hearing, do the public hearing and close it, and then answer questions as they arise during the hearing. However you'd like to proceed, but we'll bring, Jason will come up, talk about the financing, and then we can either come up and answer questions or open the public hearing. So thanks.
Thank you. Jason.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before the meeting, I handed out some updated numbers for you to look at, and I thought we'd kind of go through those. If you turn to page 2, as Zach mentioned, this is phase 2 of the project. We financed phase 1 or a portion of phase 1 earlier this year. Page 2 looks at the total estimated costs for phase 1 and phase 2 combined. So looking about $45,330,000. We're looking at about $160,000 of professional fees and contingencies for a total project of both phase 1 and phase 2 of $45,490,000. As I mentioned, and as you remember, we issued a $6 million bond issue earlier this year. Of that amount, $15,850,000 was applied towards the project. So that leaves an estimated $29,640,000 that we need to borrow for the remaining part of the project. If you've seen the legal documents, we've put in a max not to exceed of $33 million. That just allowed for some contingencies if something were to happen, that the project changed in scope between now and by the time we're able to sell on bonds. But again, the project or the bond that we're looking at financing is closer to that $29,640,000. Not the $33 million that's in the documents. That's just a not to exceed amount like we did in previous bond issues. Page 3. As Zach mentioned, we're looking at paying this through property taxes over a 20-year period. Remember, the last bond issue we paid over 10 years. This one being a larger amount and trying to reduce the impact on the taxpayers. We're looking at a 20-year financing. You see an estimated interest rate of 5.15%. The documents allow for us to either do this competitively or negotiate it with the bank. So we're looking at all options right now. As you can imagine, probably hear in the news, the market's really volatile right now. The rates are changing every day. So we're looking at both options to see what best rate we can get for the county and also maintain the most flexibility. Right now, that 5.15%, I think if we were to sell bonds today for 20 years, we'd get something closer to 5%, but I put in some cushion in there in case the market changes between now and then, and I'm almost guaranteed it will.
Yeah, it will.
But we are looking at trying to sell middle of November and or middle of December and close by the end of the year. That way you can get your tax rate in place for 2023 to make that first payment.
So the rate would be locked the middle of November or the end of the year?
If we're looking at locking in the middle of November, but once we lock it in, that will be the rate for the next 20 years. And that's one thing where I said we're looking at either competitively or negotiating it. By negotiating it, we may be able to lock in that rate sooner, because a lot of times banks will hold the rate for 30 to 45 days. And with the rates moving daily in the wrong direction for us, the sooner we can lock that in, the better. So that's why we're looking at all options. So page 4, this looks at the combined annual payment from the 2022 GO bonds that we issued earlier this year, right under $2 million, with the estimated payments for these bond issues if you decide to go forward. So you look at a total annual payment about $4.4 million, $4.5 million for the first 10 years. That's 9 years remaining. So that's about an 8-cent rate impact if you were to levy a property tax for 100% for both bonds, which I think later on the agenda that's something you're going to discuss about, and that's an annual decision that you have. You can either levy 100% from property taxes or use some other county revenues to help make that bond payment so you don't have to levy 100% of it through property taxes. But if you were, based upon the assessed value of the county for 2023, that'd be about an 8-cent tax rate impact for the first 9 years, and about 4 cents, 5 cents after that. And as what we've done in the past, on page 5, we've shown for kind of an average taxpayer what kind of impact that would be. And I kind of broken out between the GO bonds that you issued earlier this year and the bonds that we're talking about this year. So again, both combined, if you were to issue or levy a tax for both bond issues, you're looking at a little over an 8-cent tax rate. And then you can see based upon the average home or commercial or ag, what that impact would be on an annual basis. And you'll see that, I'm sure you don't remember these numbers from the last time I was here, but you'll see they were quite a bit lower than what I showed a few months ago, and that's because your 2023 assessed values are available now. And the tax base, as you probably know, has grown quite a bit since 2022. So that's a good thing. That's going to reduce your tax rates and also reduce the impact of these bonds.
Anyone have any questions?
And something else I know was asked at the last meeting, we are going to, whether it's competitive or negotiated, we're going to look at allowing the most flexibility for the county and being able to try to refinance these bonds early if you would choose to, or pay them off early if you would choose to. And right now we're looking at the 7 to 10 years that we might be able to refinance those without having any kind of penalty to the rates. So again, as we get closer, we'll be able to negotiate that and report back, but we're definitely looking at that as well.
Okay, thank you. Good presentation.
One thing that I neglected to say is there is a resolution before you that does not require any action this evening other than introduction. And I don't know if it's been assigned a resolution number, but this is a resolution making a preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement. My preference would be to introduce this simply for introduction this evening, and then perhaps at the close of the next public hearing, we do a formal adoption. We can't adopt it before the second hearing anyway, but I would prefer to have this on the record as introduced this evening if possible. And this is simply the resolution that, if adopted, says you want to move forward with the financing, and you've authorized the steps to go forward under the financing terms that were just presented.
Is this the only resolution that the council will have to pass through this process?
It is not. So this is the preliminary determination. What this will do is we will then publish notice that you've made this preliminary determination. We'll wait a bit, and then we will move forward with the formal resolutions authorizing the lease and the financing agreements. So this is step one. Once we get through this, there'll be another step very similar to this that will take place during the month of November, and another public hearing.
So at the second public hearing next week, will this be completely filled out with
Those,
updated information? You know, we've got blanks in here.
there
Issuance
should,
costs are blank, rates are blank.
oh no, that's,
This is, we even have a draft copy.
okay, so
You have this one.
we had those numbers filled in. Sorry, I can see this. I understand the stairs now.
Sorry.
Just so you know, let me, I'm glad you said that you didn't have the numbers. I want to walk through what that preliminary determination would be, and I'm looking at the second further resolved, or the first further resolved, that your determination would be to move forward with a lease that would have a maximum term of 20 years, a maximum annual lease rental attributable to the project not to exceed $3 million, with a maximum annual lease rental and principal amount of the bonds of $33 million at a interest rate not to exceed 6%. And then you'll see the tax levy estimates that Jason just discussed. Again, those are estimates, and those are all based upon the not to exceed 33 million. We plan to have a debt that's in the $29 million range.
With the verbiage changing a little from bonding to lease agreement, I just want to clarify that nothing can be changed within that lease agreement over that period. There can be no change of the rates and things during that process.
No, so
Okay.
that lease will be based upon the bonds, and the bonds are going to be issued by the building corp. And so once that's locked in, once the bonds are locked in, your lease is locked in. And
Locked in for that 20-year
and
period.
those lease payments track and are equal to the bond payments.
Okay.
It's just we're classifying them as
Just
lease
one
payments.
clarification.
You'll pay the lease payment to the building corp will pay the bond, the bank, the bond payment.
Right, okay.
Who did you say the leaseor would be on this agreement?
The lessor? The lessor will be the Morgan County, Indiana Building Corporation. These are permitted under the lease rental statute, which is what we're operating under, which is Indiana 36110.
Hold on.
Yep,
What's the IC code again?
36110. And it's a quick read. I think there's 21 specific statutes in there, and it kind of runs through how a lease rental is authorized and permitted to be used by municipalities. There's no further questions. I would ask if there's a resolution number that could be assigned to this, and whether there'd be a motion for simply introduction. And then following that, the process for opening the public hearing.
Do you have that?
It's going to be 2022-10-25.
Okay. Everybody hear that? 2022-10-25. And I know we may have some more questions, and obviously we're going to open this up as a public hearing so that if anyone present has questions as well, so you might stick around.
Sure, oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So at this time, I think we need to recess our regular meeting and move into the public hearing for the preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement. So do we need a motion for that? Yeah. So I look for a motion to recess the current meeting.
Vicky Kivett makes that motion.
Kim Meredith will second. And we need a motion to move into the public hearing on the preliminary determination.
Troy Sprinkle make that motion.
Thank you, Troy.
Melissa Green will second.
Green will second. Thank you. So now we are opening this up for the public hearing regarding resolution, what will be Resolution 2022-10-25 on the public hearing on the preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement to pay for the Justice Center. So does anyone have any questions, any comments? If you do, I ask that you come to the podium and state your name. Don't be shy if you have a question. All right. Does the council have any other questions that you want to present to the gentleman? In this period?
It's just a point of clarification. I think if Josh or someone can get up and explain exactly what we're talking about here. We're just talking about the new Justice Center, and we're not talking about renovating the courthouse or the old
Not
courthouse.
at this point.
Or anything, like just to kind of be specific on what all this money is going to be going towards. I mean, we all know, but I think we just, for the public's sake, I'd like to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. So you're right, we have been living and breathing this for a long time now. So everyone has probably seen when they came in, we've already got the parking lot underway. That's all part of the first phase. Throughout this master plan that we've been working on with our design team and some of the council. The next phase in that would be the new Justice Center. And so that's specifically the project we're talking about, not the courthouse and not the final phase of the project. Those will come later when the time is appropriate. We're just talking about this phase. We would start construction if everything goes the way we hope, and you guys are supportive of this. We'll start construction this spring with the hope of being open and fully operational by the end of '24. Any other?
No. Thank you, Josh. So hearing no further questions or comments, we will close the public hearing on the preliminary determination. And again, this is our first public hearing. We will have the second public hearing on this on October 25th. So I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Vicky Kivett makes a motion, we close the public hearing.
Jason Maxwell seconds.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. So we look for a motion to open up the regular meeting for the county council.
Melissa Green will make the motion to open up the regular meeting for the council.
Melissa?
Troy Sprinkle second.
Troy? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries 7-0. So we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the 2023 budget adoptions. And I think we'll take these individually, one by one, if that's okay with everyone. First up is the Harrison Township Fire District budget, and we have all had a chance to go over that. We had the public hearing on that. So, does anyone have any questions? I think we have representation here tonight from Harrison, do we? No, we don't. Nope, we've got Monroe here. Thank you, gentlemen. So I look for a motion to adopt the Harrison Township Fire District budget as presented.
Kelly Akala will make a motion to adopt the budget as presented.
Thank you, Kelly.
Melissa Green will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the Harrison Township Fire District budget as presented. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. So we'll move on to the Monroe Township Fire District. Does anyone have any questions or concerns on that? We do have representation here this evening from Monroe Township, and we thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Vicky Kivett makes a motion that we approve their budget as presented.
thank you. We have a motion.
Troy Sprinkle second.
Troy. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to the Morgan County budget. This one we've played with for weeks now, and we had our public hearing on this budget. But do we have any questions or comments in regard to that budget? I think Dan had some, did you have some things you were going to present on this one?
I was just going to mention that one of the things that we discussed was the possibility of moving the $400,000 appropriation in the Lit Public Safety Fund Sheriff's Department patrol car appropriation of $400,000, moving that from the Lit Public Safety Fund over to the Cume Capital Development Fund. At this stage, since that wasn't done with the published budget nor at the public hearing, which it couldn't have been done there either, if you do that, then that would mean that you would reduce the public safety budget, but you can't increase the Cume Capital Development Fund budget at this time. That would have to be done by additional appropriation in February.
So we could leave it as is for now and then make that additional appropriation.
You could leave it as is now, and then if you choose to make that change after the first of the year, then you would vote to do an appropriation reduction in the Cume Capital Development and an additional,
Vice versa.
excuse me.
Vice versa.
Yeah,
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
The public safety fund, you would do a reduction, and you would do an additional in the Cume Capital Development.
Okay.
So you don't have to take action on that tonight, but you can pass the budget since presented.
And that's just to allow for a bigger cash balance at the end of the year in the public safety fund, is that right?
That's correct. That's exactly correct.
All right. Did anyone have any questions on the Morgan County budget for 2023?
I have a question regarding the ARPA that was advertised, because I didn't know if that was reduced. It needs to be reduced based on our additional appropriation we already took this year for the balance of the ARPA.
I already took that in consideration.
You took that into consideration and took that off of the total amount?
Right,
Okay.
and then I reduced the ARPA projects appropriation so that the total of all the appropriations are equal to the revenue.
Okay.
The ARPA commission has to meet on that and approve that.
Well, not
correct?
if we
How's that
approve
work?
if we approve this budget tonight with all the ARPA appropriated, then no, then the commissioners are free to spend the money as they see fit, and it won't come before the council again.
I didn't know how that worked.
So it's just a matter of if we want to go, if you guys want to go through the, doing additional appropriations next year. If you don't do it that way, then you have to do additional appropriations next year to spend that money through ARPA.
Thoughts on that?
The ARPA committee is not binding,
Right,
not binding.
right. They're just recommending to the commissioners.
Okay,
They only have a recommendation
Right.
authority.
so they recommend that to the commissioners, and then the commissioners,
Make a decision.
you vote on it in a public meeting, is that correct? Thank you.
But the
Well,
budget
they-
presented tonight
I mean, I don't know that,
fully budgets all of the ARPA money.
Yes.
right. If we do it, yes.
Which, I'll be honest, I thought we were going to have another vote on the ARPA expenditures going forward, but Kelly's pointing out that that's not the case, so.
I mean, we can, we just choose to reduce the budget. We can choose to reduce the ARPA
Right.
budget
Pull
right
this
now.
out.
We pull this out right now. And that way, it would come before the council in the future if you want to have those discussions about how the commissioners spend the money.
Right. 'Cause I know we've all got our own opinions on that,
Right.
so.
Right.
And there's just one of us on that committee, correct? Correct. Kelly right now, right? Okay. I don't know, what do you guys think?
You're correct. We all have different opinions, and I know the commissioners may have different opinions on that too, on what it's going to be used for. So in order to kind of come to the table and have some say in that is going to require us to pull that back.
Right.
And we can make the motion with that amendment to the approval of the budget. That's what us 7 decide, and it has to be decided tonight.
Yeah, obviously, I think the commissioners would probably rather us just leave it as is, but as a council, do we feel we want to have some say in it? If we do, then we need to do what Kelly's suggesting and reduce that.
Thoughts?
I'd be for reducing it.
Okay. The full amount of the, is it like
Yeah.
13 million?
Without any other projects being specified, except for the ones that have already come before the council, it would make no sense to not just pull the full amount back.
I would too.
I agree. So we can present that in a motion, that we make that change to the budget, correct?
In the current budget that's before you, the total amount that's under the category of ARPA projects is $11,305,386. The other appropriations are, you have other services and charges of $50,000, and then there are the capital outlays, $477,630, and then radio equipment of $375,000.
Which those are things we had kind of mentioned
Those are-
during the budget
Those are
time.
Right.
So if we,
We want to keep those.
so if we,
Specified in the
yeah.
budget session.
Those need to stay in.
Leave the specified.
Yeah,
Okay,
so pull 11,305.
yeah, I think that's what we're saying, pull the 11,305 out of the budget to be dealt with as needed, and then the specified items leave in? Is that what we're?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we need it in the form of a motion to pull the 11,305,386 from the presented budget.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jason.
Back 11,305,386,000.
I'll second that motion.
A second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to extract $11,305,386 from the ARPA funds to be decided on at a later date with council approval. All right. So are there any other questions, changes, or things we need to address on the budget before we?
I think there've been some questions on, between departments on what the percentage raise is, so could we go over that, like what was decided at the meetings?
Sure. Dan, do you want to?
What was that? I
The
couldn't-
percentage raise, you know, we have different departments that are getting different things based on the matrix that they're under, or, you know, our administrative offices, what their percentage raise was going to be, because we did a little bit different this year with doing a percentage plus the,
Well, the matrix, for those positions covered by the matrix in the sheriff and jail and the work release, those were at $2,500
okay,
increase. For all other, well, all other positions except for the highway department, the raise is 3% plus $500.
Which came to about another 1% on base to those.
$500
So-
is close to the equivalent of 1%.
Right, so a total of 4% increase.
And then the highway department, those were set at what was proposed. And those range, the range on those are anywhere from 4.4% to as much as, here's where I need the highway department. There it is.
Yeah, he's here.
Because I'm not sure, Grant.
We got to come
on
back to
some of
that
these
transfer
positions.
too.
Obviously, I know that part-time, we're comparing part-time rate for next year to part-time rate this year, which is $19 compared to $14.11. The, on the floater laborer, do you really have anyone in that position?
We do not.
now?
That is a new position.
That's a new position, and it's at $21.09.
Correct.
Okay.
So there really is no comparison for that
Right.
position. The sign shop manager, that being paid currently at that truck driver rate.
There was never a job description for that position either.
But the current pay for,
There is
no one in that position
no one in that
until
position
January.
till January.
In January, that position
will be a new position at $22.96.
Okay.
The mechanic increase is 6.8% increase. We're going from $24.94 to $26.64. The truck driver level 1 is going from $21.99 to $23.49. Jump in anytime I make a mistake, Grant. And that-
Yeah, I don't have the paper in front
That's
of me.
6.8%.
But everything from there is more or less 6.8
Basically,
outside of,
the equipment operator is a new position. There is no one in equipment operator position, and that position in '23 will be at $24.55. The office staff, those were adjusted so that they are both making the same rate of pay per hour at $21.33. For one position, it's an increase of 4.1%. The other one is a 7.9% increase. Shop foreman, that is going from $31.87 to $34.03, and that's at might as well round it up, 6.8%. Floater, I already talked about that, that's a new position.
correct.
Crew boss is going from $24.94 to $26.64, once again, 6.8%. Part-time is going from $14.11 to $19, and that's a 34.6%.
34%?
34.6. Or 34.7.
The
That's
part-time,
part-time.
we had that conversation during budget time, that you're not able to get somebody at $14 an hour for a manual labor position when McDonald's is paying that. So
Right.
that was a discussion on that.
Right. And all of these are job
$14.11 to
description
$19.
updates, which that's why it reflects that rate of increase?
What, part-time?
No,
Just all of
in
them
general.
that-
Well, I think some of them are actually
Well,
new
the
positions.
positions are job description changes, and they all have job description changes.
Right.
It's just that for the new position, there is no current.
No
There's
comparison.
no one working in that position title, and so there is no current rate to
Compare it to.
Other than the fact that some of those individuals are at the truck driver rate of pay, because historically, including this year, the highway department, everybody was paid the same rate of pay. I think that was the direct change in direction that but Grant wanted to go. Assistant superintendent, that is an increase to 7.3%, and then for superintendent, it's 6.8%. So, for the most part, those that have a comparable position, or being able to compare, they're basically in the neighborhood of 6.8%. The differences being the part-time, because I think they're wanting to try to get people to work part-time. Plus, I think you're wanting to put more duties and job requirements on those part-time positions.
Correct, yeah. but-
Maybe you can get
And
someone.
correct me if I'm wrong, but did not all the county follow my job description for the part-time?
Don't believe so.
For the $19.
No.
No?
No.
No.
I believe Parks has $19.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I thought, I was under the
clerk
impression
or
that,
the office staff part-time is at the 4% or 3% increase.
okay.
Which is $14.
and they didn't get the
So it was
500.
just the parks that followed suit with the job description at the $19. Okay,
Because they're kind of operating equipment and stuff,
same industry.
same as your department.
They're comparable.
Is there anything else?
Kelly, do you have anything else?
Questions, comments? I
Not
mean,
with
the-
that, no.
Part-time corrections, actual part-time corrections is at $20.53. But the parks, their part-time rate of pay, at least currently, until, they haven't passed the salary ordinance yet, so they're not going to be doing that tonight.
No.
Correct.
But they're at $19.
Yes.
So that's
Yes, I thought, okay, so more or less Parks used the job description that we created, sent to Wiz, got approved just like all the others, so.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
here. You
Okay,
guys need
thanks,
anything?
Grant.
Yep, not a problem.
Anyone have any questions on that? Further questions on that?
Not on that, I just have a few more comments on the budget.
Okay.
I'm sure you're all very tired of hearing me reiterate my opinion on how much the county is spending on our budgets. I've shared with all of you, but obviously, since this is the adoption meeting, I like to share that in the public as well. When I came on the council 4 years ago, Morgan County had significant cash balances, which was great, and that was done through the work of many conservative people on the council in previous years. And for good reason, some of those cash balances should have come down, and we have done that. But I think I've reiterated enough to all of you that we are in a cycle here that we can't sustain these budgets going forward. The revenue is not here to support them. I was really hoping that that was discussed enough to show that we can't sustain these budgets, and we might be able to pull back a little bit this year and not continue to grow our budgets year after year, just to help pull back to ease it a little bit. And was not successful on my part. So I just want to caution all of you going forward, since I won't be here, that hopefully you can look at the situation. It's a very difficult situation. I know that we need all the services that we're providing to the county. But however, being able to grow our revenue to get what we think we need is just not something we can pull out of the hat and make happen. Unfortunately, we're constrained by the tax laws. So I can't support the size of this budget.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Okay. Hearing none, I think we're going to move on to a vote on the Morgan County budget for 2023. And we've all had those numbers, gone over those numbers, so I look for a motion to approve or not approve the budget for 2023. Nothing?
Chip Keller will make a motion to approve the Morgan County budget for 2023.
As presented. Thank you, Chip. Well, modified, yes, as modified with the ARPA funds. I apologize. We have a motion? Kim Meredith.
Maxwell, second.
Thank you, Jason. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So how many nays did we have?
2.
Two. 2 nays. 5 yeses. So motion carries 5-2. All right, I'm going to come back to the, Grant, you want to come back up? We had the local roads and street funds transfer.
Yeah, and I want to start off with an apology. I actually thought this was in the Novembers. I thought this was strictly a meeting for the adoption
Oh,
of the
that's okay.
budget. And I kind of pride myself on scheduling and, coordination and
That's all
things
right.
of that nature, so. But yeah, since it is there and I am here, I'll be more than happy to address this. And more or less, this is, we're asking for the 10-7 to go from maintenance, repair parts into equipment lease. This is it. This is the last of the hurrah from the past administration's ordering.
Is this
It's
that-
the last 2 do-all trucks. And This is the makeup that we need for that, and part of that is on me. There's a pump on the trucks, and there's multiple brands of these pumps, and all of our trucks have one of each. So we have specifically went to the Muncie product, which is made here in Muncie, Indiana.
Okay.
Parts are readily available, and there was a little bit of an uptick in the lease agreement for that, so that is why you see that.
And that's not going to put you short in any of your maintenance repair for the
No,
remainder of the year?
not at all.
I have no issue on the transfer if it's not an additional. Thank you
It's not by
very
any
much.
means. It was thought ahead and looked at.
Any questions for Grant on that transfer?
I like transfers, so I'll make a motion to approve a transfer of $10,772 from maintenance repair parts to equipment lease.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Vicky Kivett seconds that.
Thank you, Vicki. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the transfer of the $10,772 from maintenance repair parts to equipment lease, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Wanna thank
opposed,
you all
same
very
sign.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, next up, Dan's going to explain to us a little bit about the salary ordinance amendments in the auditor's office.
Yes, it's an amendment for 2022. What this is the additional number of positions that are going to be in the office between now and the end of the year in the transition, with the fact that the auditor-elect, or will be the auditor-elect, she's unopposed. Auditor-elect is an employee in the auditor's office, and so we're needing to replace her and work that in. And so we have a position that's labeled the customer service specialist on the salary ordinance, and we're increasing that number by, well, actually, we're two changes we're making. There is now a property tax data specialist, position, but we modified the job descriptions and job titles, and that position is no longer exist, and was replaced with the title and the duties of a customer service specialist. And so we reduced the number of from 1 to 0 on the data specialist, and increased that customer service to 2, and now we're increasing it 1 more to 3, so that we have the correct number of positions in the auditor's office. After the first of the year and Linda becomes auditor, that'll all drop off. And we also have the amendment to the salary ordinance that indicates that the position title financial assistant is shared with the treasurer, and that's also on the amendment that is before you.
And just to be clear, you have plenty of money in order to do this because of the new position that was granted to the auditor's office that wasn't filled this year
That's correct.
until now.
That's correct.
So that's why there's no additional appropriation, no additional money will be needed.
It's just getting the job titles and the number of positions in line with the actual situation.
Okay. Anyone have any further questions on that salary amendment? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve said salary ordinance amendment for the auditor's office and the positions that Dan has explained to us.
Kelly O'Connell will make that motion.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Troy Sprinkle, second the motion.
Troy? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Dan, for that explanation. In your packets that you received earlier, we are going to have some appointments that are coming up for 2020, that expire in 2022 and will need to be replaced. And I'm not going to get into all of those tonight, but if you don't have a copy of that appointment list, let me know and I can get you a copy, or Deb can. But we'll need to address those that are coming up. But one that we do have in our packet for this evening is the Mooresville Library Board appointment. And I think that has currently been filled. I had that, hang on. I was trying to see who we had on it, just a second. thought I had it. Maybe I don't. Anyway, the Mooresville Board, Library Board, has sent us their recommendation for who to fill that. I don't think the person that has been on there wants to continue after this appointment. So they have sent us their recommendation for who to appoint to that board for 2023. It's a Doug McCoy letter presented to the members of the Morgan County Council on behalf of the Mooresville Public Library Board of Trustees to introduce and present a candidate for the appointment to the Mooresville Public Library Board of Trustees, Doug McCoy. And then it goes on to give kind of his background and information, so if you want to take a look at that. We don't have to vote on this evening. It can be voted on with our other appointments, but I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we will need to address those.
So the person that's currently serving is serving through the end of the year, or they've already stepped off?
I thought they were still there till the end of the year, but, I mean, we can go ahead and vote on this one. I mean, I leave it up to those that know better than me what the board, or the Mooresville Library Board needs.
Deb, do you know if they've resigned?
Have they already resigned? Okay, good. So it, want to wait and do them all at the same time, maybe at our November or December meeting? We'll ask Dan to put that on the agenda for our upcoming meeting, but do be attentive to I'll get you this list so everybody can be attentive to that. Is there any other business that needs to come before the council this evening? Keith, did you have a question?
No.
No, we
haven't
did the
talked about
public
that yet.
hearing for the
No.
bond. I know,
But I
what-
think
yeah.
Dan-
Dan was going to go over
Dan
some.
wants to talk about the payment
Yeah,
options.
we'll let Dan get back and he can delve into that a little bit. Thank you, Keith. Sure.
I will go ahead and say, while we're waiting, on the website, and this is really geared towards the public, and Keith, maybe the paper will let you write about this. On the website, in the top right corner, under, I think it says, find help, find something. There's a little drop-down menu, and you can express interest in a board. And so then we get an email with what, the people's qualifications are, what they're interested in. And so the more residents that do that, and a few have done it, but not many, we can then farm those out to you guys and help match. people who
Perfect.
are
I
interested.
wasn't
Great.
aware of that.
Thanks.
That's good. Okay, we kind of skimmed over. You were going to give us some,
Those are
strategy.
actually, we're putting on, I put those strategies on the agenda, not so much for obviously no action on that, but you can discuss it, but more to just have you start to think about going forward and what your strategy is going to be with the bond issues, whether or not you're going to pay for some of the principal and interest from funds other than the bond fund, or if you're going to use other funds to pay down the bond, to reduce the amount of the bond. Those were put on there just to get you started to think about this and
that does bring up one thing that I know we had addressed at one point with these meetings, and Josh may be able to help with this. I think we had talked about extracting the cost for furniture and furnishings for the new Justice Center and not bonding that portion of the cost. Do you recall that?
I have a vague recollection that we discussed it. I don't think we've done that. We've included.
So you've included it in there. I myself would think that would be something, I mean, Dan and I kind of laughed about this today. You don't really want to finance your furniture for 20 years.
No.
So I think we need to look at that, kind of look at those numbers, and maybe that be something that we pull out of that total project cost.
Well, and this illustrative tax impact on page 4, they're assuming that we're using available funds to make the first debt service payments as well. So if we're not,
we are.
Yeah.
We are, that is in the budget for 2023. That's already in there.
okay.
We're making the first payment on the general obligation bonds that have already been issued. That first payment in January is being paid out of the Local Income Tax Economic Development Fund, and that's in the budget that you passed tonight. So that's already there. So speaking of like the furniture and the furnishings, you don't necessarily have to use funds available, but you might pull that out and finance those purchases with a debt issue or a loan that's more closely resembles the useful life of those items rather than 20 years. But that was food for thought.
Yeah. And nothing we're going to vote on this evening, so just kind of some things to think about before we make those final decisions. Sorry, Ms. Gillis again. All right, so did that help, Keith? No, go ahead. Okay. All right.
I mean, those are great things we need to start thinking about, absolutely. And bear in mind too, you know, the commissioners are going to engage Reedy, the financial advisors, to kind of help us with.
And I think that
going
process has
forward.
already
So that'll
begun.
all be- That'll probably be included in maybe what they would recommend.
Advise, yeah. Which I don't know if that'll all be panned out in that amount of time, but I don't think so. Any other questions or anything we want to question on those options? Again, any other business that needs to come before the council this evening? Our next meeting is October 25th, which is a special meeting, and that'll have that second public hearing. So that is October 25th, and I believe that one's at 5 PM. Does everyone have that down for the correct time? Yes. Okay. So hearing no other business, I look for a motion to adjourn.
Melissa Green will make the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Chip. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor